I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and I am here with lovely Sarah, my wife, and we're going to talk about the Guardian Long Range competition that was this weekend, April 1st and 2nd, at Frontline Defense down in Warrenton, North Carolina. Now, this match is different from some of the previous Guardian matches that we talked about because this match was actually a two-day match. Most Guardian matches are only a one-day match, and they are an individual match. This match broke it up over 2 days, and the first day was actually an individual effort match, and then depending upon where you finished on the first day, they broke the field up into the top half and the bottom half, and then they paired those shooters up, one from the top half and one from the bottom half, to shoot on the second day as a team. So it was a very interesting time, and the whole goal behind this was to take some of the more experienced shooters that maybe have quite a few PRS matches under their belt and pair them with less experienced shooters where this may have been their first match that they have ever shot in. And it was a really cool way to set it up, a really great way to get people that maybe would be intimidated to approach some of the more experienced shooters and ask them about things, and really force these two different personalities to work together. So it was a great time. Overall, we had a total of 92 shooters, and in the end they broke those down, and I didn't write down how many teams they were, but approximately 40 some odd teams. Once you had some people that shot on the first day, didn't shoot on the second day, and they got everything arranged. So it was a pretty deep field. 92 shooters is a pretty good amount of people to get moving through the match, and it seemed to flow pretty well. What did you think?
I think it flowed really well. They had the stages set up so that you were at a location for two different stages. So stage 1 and stage 2 were together, stage 3 and stage 4 were together. So once you were in a spot, you were there for a little bit. So you weren't just constantly moving, trying to flow through. So that helped. And then on the second day, the team stage, the team day, you would shoot the first shooter would shoot one stage and the second shooter would shoot a second stage. So you're really shooting 2 stages in 85 seconds. So it flowed pretty easy. We were done by 12:30-ish on that second day. So it was a pretty quick day.
Now, one of the really nice things about Frontline Defense is the way that they are set up. You can access any of the shooting positions while live fire is going on. So it made it really nice. As soon as a squad was finished with one stage, you could pick up, you could move to the next stage, and you could be ready to go when that next squad finished. And our squad usually was the one, we were squad 1, we were usually running up on the back of the next squad, so we didn't have a whole lot of downtime where we were just hanging around at anything. We'd get there, the next squad, their last couple of shooters would finish, and we'd be ready to go. I didn't see a whole lot where there was an empty stage and no one was shooting. Usually there was shooting going on at all the firing points. So that was just from our perspective in the first group versus what may have been going on elsewhere. Now we're going to cover some of the stages and some of the things that we found interesting about those stages, and we're going to cover them in the order that we shot them, which was pretty much stage 1 through stage 12 on the first day. Since we were squad 1, we started out at stage 1. Now the way each one of the firing points was set up is each one had 2 stages at it. So you'd shoot the first stage, and then as soon as the whole squad shot the first stage, they would brief you for the second stage, and then you would move over and you would shoot the second stage. So that allowed them to do the most, I think, with the minimum number of ROs, because if you shot both stages at the same time, you'd have to split your ROs, and very often we were shooting target arrays that were very close to each other for both stages, so it would be very easy for a shooter to get confused and get on to a incorrect target or a target for the adjacent stage. And we actually did see that a couple of times while we were running one stage. A shooter would wander off and start engaging a different target instead of the targets that they were supposed to be engaging for that stage. So it happens, especially when targets get beat up and the paint gets blown off of them, so you can't tell what color they are anymore. So we started off with stage 1, and that was a barricade stage. It was a fairly standard barricade, a lattice work barricade, and it was we had an array of we had one target, I'm sorry, one target at 478 yards that we had to engage from 5 different points on the barricade. And they allowed you to choose what points of the barricade you wanted to engage from. And the height on the barricade ranged from extremely high to where there's no way I could shoot off the topmost portion of the barricade to the lowest position if you wished. You could go prone with your bipod and rear bag on the ground and the barrel just sticking through the barricade. So you could really pick your poison. It was really nice that you could try to stand back and gauge which points would be most comfortable for you. The one trick to it, though, is that you couldn't go up and actually see which points were comfortable. So you had to stand back and eyeball it, watch other shooters that were kind of the same size as you address it, and see which spot you wanted to take. The barricade was not the most stable. You couldn't put a whole lot of weight onto it. I didn't really try to load it hard. I just kind of ran it with the front edge of my bipod. On the AE Mark II, I've got the bipod spigot sticking out there. I just hooked the bipod spigot on it, loaded it, and then shot, and then used the bottommost position with my rear bag. So how did you go about it, or what did you think about the stage?
The barricade was very deceiving. You thought it was going to be a little more stable than it actually was. Barricades notoriously aren't stable, but this one just seemed like it had a little extra wobbly to it. As John pointed out, you could choose 5 different positions. Someone my size was limited because what he started at his normal shoulder height position was a tippy toe position for me. So, once you started at the top, you had to work your way down. You couldn't start at the bottom and work your way up. So I don't even know if I made it to the prone position. I think I did right before the buzzer went off, or maybe right as the buzzer went off. So it was just some heights. There were guys who were my size who had the same issue. But it was your standard barricade stage, though.
And the target on this was not that large. It was probably a 2.5 to 3 MOA target. I didn't have the actual target sizes written down. They didn't actually give us the target sizes. You just kind of eyeballed it. There was only one stage in the entire match that they told us the target stage, and that was the unknown distance stage on day 2. But I managed only 2 hits, and I don't remember which position I got those 2 hits. It's likely that those were only the only 2 hits I got were the prone position. I don't recall, and no one was running video for me when I shot it, so I couldn't go back and watch the video. But as I said, the barricade was fairly straightforward, but a lot of guys really took a little extra time to try to figure out how they were going to shoot it. Some shot like I did, where they were just using the bipod to load against the barricade. Some went with a front bag underneath their rifles. Others had various different types of barricade stops on their rifles. So there was really a wide variety of how we engaged it. Then after the entire squad shot stage 1, we shifted over to the right to stage 2, and this was an array of tires. And they had 4 tires set out that were actually 5 tires.
5 tires. Yeah.
5 tires set out that were in various different states, from a really large tractor tire down to a smaller passenger car, and then 1 semi-truck tire, I think. And then the last position, you could go prone off the side of it. This one was kind of interesting because if you sat back and you looked at it, the way the tires were set up, the first tire, this big, huge tractor tire, it had enough height on it and enough width on the sidewall of the tire that if you got to one extreme side or the other, then you could get both your bipod and a rear bag on the tire. So you could shoot it just like a messed up bench rest. Now, obviously, you had to work with the contours of the tread and the contours of the sidewall, but it was perfectly easy to get your bipod up there and get it set in. The next tire, it was a little bit more messed up. It was no, that one was just the one that was sitting straight up.
Yeah, like you'd see it on a car.
So the next tire was just sitting straight up, but you had a narrow width. So there you had to go with something like a 4-end bag to get the most stable, and then your buttstock was just hanging out. The tire in the middle was actually kind of two messed up tires. There was one that was leaning kind of forward, and another one that was just torn up tread that was balled up and stuck in the middle of that. So what you ended up there was you could actually get 2 points of contact on the rifle and get a little bit more stable if you chose to use that. And then again, you still had to support the rear of the rifle, but since you had 2 points of contact, it wasn't really too wobbly. Then next you had a truck tire laying on its side, flat on the ground, and again there was enough front to back on that you could get your bipod and a rear bag on it and go with a really high prone position. And then lastly, you had the ground next to it that you could shoot regular prone if you wanted to. Again, on this we have one target, and the target was at 398 yards. And this was actually the only stage that I cleaned. When I went through it, I was looking at it, and Scott Whitehead from Best Targets was on our squad. And we did a lot of discussing stages together before we go hit them. We also had Travis and Adam from APO on our squad, and those guys are absolutely hilarious to shoot with. They are just absolutely great guys. So together, our squad, we had a ton of fun. But we go up and we look at these stages, and here's the really, really important thing that I can't stress enough about Guardian. When you shoot a Guardian match, everyone is there to make sure that everyone else does as well as they possibly can. There's none of this, okay, I'm going to keep all the information to myself, and I'm not going to let you know because I want to beat you. It's more about, hey, I want to help you do as well as you possibly can, and if you beat me, hey, great, good job. So it's really, I can't stress enough, if you're a new shooter and you don't know if you have what it takes to shoot matches, or you're intimidated by the match format, go shoot a Guardian match, because they are absolutely incredible for being able to get out there and get used to that 90-second time frame, get used to shooting off of strange things that you never thought you would have to shoot off of before, and have a wide array of experience to be able to back you up and help you out and give you tips. So it's absolutely awesome. And even experienced shooters, it helps when you look at a stage and you think, I'm going to address this stage and I'm going to do this. And then another experienced shooter comes up to you and goes, I think this might be a good way to address it. And you think, oh, well, yeah, I didn't think of that. I actually think that probably would be better. So there was a lot of that. And Scott and I were talking about this stage, and when we sat down and we looked at it, the first tire, the fourth tire, and then prone were both pretty much just straight up bipod and rear bag. So that was the primary position that we were going to go with. And then the upright tire allowed you just to throw a 4-end bag on it and get on that tire and then brace your rear elbow. And so looking at it, it seemed like a fairly straightforward stage there. And again, that was the only one that I cleaned out of all the stages. So that worked out pretty well. Again, we're 90-second time limit for everything on the first day. So you didn't have a lot of time to get into position and goof around with stuff. You had to have a plan, and you had to get up there and execute the plan as quickly as you can. So what did you think about the tire stage?
I thought it was interesting. I think I even used the term, I'm just going to frog hop it down. And I'm pretty much, the big tire was a kneeling position for me, and I kneeled until I got to the last tire to go prone. I don't remember how many hits. I don't keep track of that stuff. But it was interesting. I felt that one of them, I think the third tire, like where the tire with the tire stuffed in it, was the most stable position. I think that might be where my hits came from.
So after all of our shooters went through both those two stages, we moved over to the next assembly area, and we had two stages there. The first one was called Dodge, and it was just basically a Dodge Ram pickup truck that we had to shoot off of. And we had 4 positions on the truck and then 1 position prone underneath the tailgate of the truck to shoot. And again, we had 1 target downrange at 486 yards. And this, when you look at it, you think, okay, well, it's a vehicle. But then when you step back and you look the way we had to shoot it, it ended up just being another barricade stage. And a lot of these you can break down and just look at them as barricade stages. Because the first position, you started off on the hood, and the truck was actually kind of sunk down a little bit into the ground. So my height, I could get a good bipod and rear bag position across the hood and get some good hits there. And then from that position, you had to move over to the door, and you were shooting through the cab of the truck, utilizing the driver's side door as support. Then you moved to the bed, and you could shoot anywhere you wanted to across the bed of the truck. The only catch was on both sides of the bed, there were stake pockets with eyelets in them. So you need to be really careful, because the way the truck was sitting, you were shooting almost flat across the bed. So the truck was at a little bit of an angle, shooting flat across the bed. It's easy for you to drop in, be looking right over one of those eyelets with your scope, and put a bullet right into one of the eyelets. So I had to be real careful about where I set my muzzle. There was another position that Scott and I talked about. The most stable would have been at the bed right against the cab, to where you can load the rifle into the side of the cab and stabilize it. But again, since the bed was at just enough of an angle, I figured if you got in there and pushed your muzzle or your rifle forend into the cab, that you were probably going to clip the cab on the far side with the bullet. So no one used the edge of the cab to shoot. Everybody was further back. And then after that, you went to the tailgate, which the tailgate again was low enough that you could just lay over the tailgate and use that as a bench, and then drop down to prone. So again, when you looked at this one, from the hood, the tailgate, and the ground, it's just a simple bipod and rear bag. Then in between, for instance, the door and the tailgate, you just have the bed. Yeah, the bed. The door and the bed rail, you just have a narrow support to be on. So it was interesting to figure out how you were going to address that and how you were going to set your gun up. Now, Guardian is a open match. There are no gear limitations on it. So you could bring whatever you wanted to bring. I think the only thing that I had heard that you couldn't use was a tripod, but there was no place on the courses of fire where that became necessary that I had to ask if I could use a tripod. But whatever rear bags, bipods, whatever you wanted to use could be used on these stages. So very often, because we'd have various different things, I would go up with my gun set up for 2 different points. And in this case, I had my bipod and my rear bag attached, but then I had a forend bag on the forend as well. So as I went through, I could shoot that bipod rear bag, and then I could drop the forend bag on the driver's side door and shoot that like a regular unstable barricade. And then same thing with the bed, and then again bipod rear bag and bipod rear bag for tailgate and prone. So on that one, I came out with 6 hits on it. The place that I dropped the most shots was across the driver's side door, because I tried to get the rifle on it too far back, and I had too much of the barrel and forend hanging into the truck, and that was making me really unstable. I just couldn't get a stable position there. When I got on the bed, I was able to load the rifle into the bed a little bit better. I think I got better hits there. But the tailgate and prone those were really the money makers. You want to get all your hits there.
I think I actually did okay on the door, simply because I have a shortened barrel, so I wasn't as front heavy as my husband here. I don't remember how many hits I got. I know it wasn't a 0. I liked it because the hood of the truck was perfect height for me. I felt like this was, if I was going to do it, because this was all my height, not like the barricade was. And anytime I can lay prone, I'm happy. So.
Well, so again, that one was straightforward, and once everyone went through that, we went over to the concrete stage, which the concrete stage was small, you say about 12-inch, 18-inch diameter, probably more like 18-inch diameter concrete culverts.
I mean, guys were barely fitting shoulders in there. So, I mean, that kind of gives you an idea of how big the pipe was. It wasn't huge.
So it was relatively small concrete culvert, not something that you would really want to try to crawl through. And that was facing downrange with the axis along the stage of fire. Then there was another culvert that was set at a right angle to that. And then there was a concrete triangle piece set on the end of that. And then again, I think we had a prone position after that that we could go to.
I thought there were 4 pieces of concrete. I don't remember. I can't remember. There were 10 hits, and I know 2 from each position, so there had to be something in there.
So in this stage, you didn't really get to choose where you shot from. You had to shoot from specific points, and you had to start out with your bipod and your muzzle inside the first culvert. So whatever you were using for front support, if it was a bag, etc., that had to be in the culvert. And then once you fired that, you had to come out of the culvert and you had to go on top
You're right.
of the culvert. So you've got a really nice curved position, and it wasn't perfectly straight to the line of fire. So you were off axis just a little bit, which of course can give you problems if you have a long pistol grip or a long magazine, because you have that high point of the culvert between your support points on top of it. So you have that, and then you moved over to the 90-degree culvert, and that you had to try again to make sure that you're not high centering your magazine on it. Then over to the concrete triangle, and then after you shot off that, you went prone to the right of it. So again, we had a variety of different positions, a variety of different points that you had to set up your gun a little bit different to shoot off of. On this one, I set up my rifle again, mostly bipod rear bag, and then I had the 4N bag on it to go with the 90-degree culvert. And for whatever reason, that just didn't work all that well for me. I think my biggest problem was when I got on the 90-degree portion of the culvert. My bipod was hitting on the front end of it, and my magazine was hitting on the back side of it. So I wasn't getting that nice soft support between the rifle and the culvert, and I was dragging on it as I was trying to get into position. So that really wasn't the greatest. Overall, on that one, I ended up getting 2 points out of it. The biggest thing about these culvert stages that you have to remember is if they don't require you to stick your head into the culvert, you want to be as far back as you possibly can be from it for 2 different reasons. First of all, if you have to start in the culvert and come out of the culvert, you don't want to have to crawl backwards to be able to get your rifle out. You want to be able to just pop up, thread the rifle out, put it on top of the culvert, and go to the next position. You also don't want to get your face really far in there because this culvert was long enough that the muzzle of the rifle was still inside of it. And when you fire a high-powered rifle inside of a confined space, you get a pretty wicked pressure wave that comes out of it. So if you're far enough back from that, then it can dissipate before it hits you in the face. If you stick your face right in that culvert, you're catching all of that pressure in your face every time you fire. And it can really do a job on your hearing, it can do a job on your sinuses. In some cases, it'll make your eyes water and you really can't see. So you want to make sure that you just get enough in there to be legal and to be within the rules, and not stick your whole face in there. So what did you think on this one?
So what I learned is that you don't have your bipod fully elevated, that you want it as low as possible. And then don't hit your mag release on the way down to lower your bipod when you're in a concrete tube. And when you have a really short barrel with a brake on it, get as little as your as legally allowed, because yeah, it's loud. It's what I'm trying to say. How did I compare it? It sounded like someone shooting off like a mortar. It was just boom. I mean, it was so loud. But I felt the triangle was the most stable other than the prone. And I don't remember how many. Guys, I don't keep it. I don't know. There's a spreadsheet somewhere with my hits. I didn't look at it.
Well, the next stage next to that was the Learn Your Limits stage. And this contrasts a Know Your Limits stage by the fact that for Learn Your Limits, you really... First of all, let me back up from that. Concrete was the last on that firing point. We moved over to the next one for Learn Your Limits. And Learn Your Limits and the Tahoe stage were at the same point. So as we walked up, we've got a big white Tahoe with a set of wooden steps going up to the side of it. And then there was a small wooden, not really a barricade, it's basically a 2x4 target support, but laying on the ground underneath the rear of the
Yes, it was
Yes,
the rear.
it was on the rear, under the rear edge of the Tahoe. So the Learn Your Limit stage was shot from the prone position. There was a KYL rack out at 462 yards. And it was a standard KYL rack, so the targets were largest to smallest on it. And on the start signal, you had to take a prone position behind this target support. You could get just a regular prone position. There was nothing goofy about it, nothing strange. So bipod and rear bag get into position, and you had 90 seconds to engage targets, largest to smallest, with 2 shots on each of the 5 targets. If you missed, you just went on. 2 shots only on each. You kept all your points. So hits were hits, misses were misses. You didn't zero out on this. That's why they called it Learn Your Limits instead of Know Your Limits. So you really, there was no risk to this one. You shot at everything no matter what. Know Your Limits stages are a love-hate relationship for me. You can gain a lot of points on a Know Your Limit stage. You can also gain a great big huge goose egg on a Know Your Limit stage. So it's nice that this, again, Guardian's kind of designed as a learning environment, that it was set up so that you can go for that last target, that smallest target, and see if you have the capability to hit it, versus going, no, I'm going to play it safe and I'm not going to try to engage the smaller targets and save my points. So I got 7 hits out of it. The big trick to a Know Your Limit stage or a Learn Your Limit stage, it's especially good for a Know Your Limit stage, is you want to try to get that position strong enough that when you fire, you can actually watch your impacts. If the targets are hanging by just a single piece of fire hose like these were, when you hit them on the edge, the target will want to twist. Same thing when you hit them high or low. You can generally get a good indicator of where you hit on that target by how the target moves when you hit it. So you want to keep track of that, because as you go along, very often you need to refine your hold on that target. And in this case, all these distances that I've read to you so far are fairly close in, but you're shooting from unstable positions, and then we also really did have to deal with some strange winds. And the Tahoe stage, where the Tahoe was at, we had a berm that ran all the way along the side of it. So you're sunk down into this low spot, and you really couldn't feel wind that was going to be affecting your bullet downrange as soon as it cleared the end of the berm. So that was a little bit interesting, and it's not really that big of a deal at the 462 yards that we were shooting at on the larger half of that rack, but when you got down to these smaller ones, that got a little interesting. And I was happy I came off of it with 7 hits. I actually hit every one of the plates, but if it was a legit Know Your Limits, I would have goose egged earlier on, and I probably, if you did like some of them do it, I would have had to start over. So so it was nice that that's one of those really low pressure stages. You just get to drop down and shoot and see. You don't have to waste a lot of time setting up crazy positions or moving between positions. So
Yeah, it's just a pretty straightforward stage, like you said. Really not much to it, knowing your wind calls. Paul has set up at Frontline. These ranges kind of crisscross, a downrange will crisscross from each other. Like you said, you could see people shooting the Know Your Limit stage when you were on the stage before it. And so what you feel in wind isn't what's downrange, because you have so many alleys crossing each other. So there's big open areas that are affecting everything, and he's just nice enough not to put out any flags or anything, so you have no idea unless you have a mirage or unless you have like one lone reed of grass that's going to help you out. But this stage is pretty straightforward.
next after that, we have the Tahoe stage, which, as I said, we have there was a big white Tahoe out there and a set of stairs going up to it. And you had to engage 5 targets across the roof of the Tahoe. And the target ranges were 651 yards, 669 yards, 692 yards, 736 yards, and a second one at 736 yards. So this was the first one where you actually had to move to different target ranges as you went out, and they were engaged near to far. And as far as getting your position, you started at the base of the stairs. Time started, again, 90 seconds. You ran to the top. You threw your gun down. I shot it just bipod and rear bag because I was able to get up high enough that I could actually get a stable position behind the rifle. And then you ran the targets. And I managed to only pull 2 hits out of it. And the issue that I was having was on the targets that you could see your impacts, because some of them you couldn't see any splash at all when you missed. The targets that I could see it, I would see it off to one side and I would make my wind correction for the next target and it would go off the other side. So the wind was really up, down, up, down, up, down. And that was really actually a common thing for everyone that shot the stage. You go down and look at the scores for the Tahoe. They were fairly low for what are fairly standard intermediate range targets. So that was kind of interesting. That it's really in a devious position where you have difficulty with getting the wind call on the gun. And the Mirage at that target point was pretty wicked. I don't know if it was something with the way it was coming off the roof of the Tahoe or if it was just where it was downrange, but the Mirage was pretty crazy on that stage. What did you think?
Well, it helps when you shoot at the right targets. Just going to go ahead and lay that out there. Again, that's kind of why I brought up the whole multiple targets and multiple lanes. Once I realized that they were orange targets, and I shot at the right targets, I think I got 2 hits. Again, wind calls were just ridiculous. It didn't really matter what happened because in 3 seconds it wasn't the same. And it was a hot, windy day. That's really kind of what got us.
Yeah, the morning started off pretty chilly, but when we got on towards the middle of the day, the sun came out and it was baking us pretty good. It was a great shooting day, but yeah, that sun really made the Mirage a fun thing to have to deal with. So that was it from that firing point, and then we moved over to the next stage, which was spools. And on this one, there were various different cable spools set on their side, and there were actually 3 of them stacked at one position, and then the I didn't write down the where was the other spool at? It was on its side, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
and you
there
had to
were-
go prone underneath it.
So there were 3 large spools stacked in kind of a pyramid configuration, and then there was a smaller wooden spool sat on end, so that you had the center section of the spool horizontal. And again, this one was straightforward stage. The targets were at target was at 588 yards, and you had to engage it with 2 shots each from each one of the positions. The biggest issue that I had with this one was the way that they had set the positions up on the spool. There wasn't a logical flow through it, so you had to remember which position you were going to next. And a lot of people would come off and start to go to one position, and the RO would have to say, nope, no, back, go to this one. That's one of those that you just have to program that stage in your head before you start and run through it time and time again, going, I'm going to go here, 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 and here, and just keep visualizing that in your head. As far as actually shooting the stage, it was mainly, I went bipod rear bag for almost all the positions with the exception of the horizontal, and I actually think I timed out before I got to the horizontal.
I timed out before I got to being prone under the big spool as well. You had to think about it, and you just paused for a moment to know where you were going.
And I got 4 hits on the spools. The first couple of positions were very stable. You didn't really have a lot of problems with them because the top of the spools were perfectly horizontal. It was just like a tabletop. The only issue with the spools is that it had rained pretty well the night before the match, so the indents in the top of the spools, they were plastic, kind of egg crate looking deal. All the indents were full of water, so when you dropped across of it, you dropped your arms down in water. And so I came off that with my shirt a little wet, but the actual shooting problem was not a big deal. So that was the spools, and then next to that there was a 4x4 set on the ground, and so that was the 4x4 stage. Now the 4x4 stage, we had 5 different targets, and they were at 317, 577, 597, 615, and 632 yards. This stage was pretty much all prone. You shot everything prone. And you had 90 seconds just to run the targets near to far. Again, pretty straightforward, but this one still, the wind was just, it was switching up and down. We were gusting from no wind to sometimes up to 8 to 9 mile an hour wind, and then dropping back off. And it would get you because you would get in there, you get your game plan. Some guys were dialing wind on the gun, and so they would get up there with their wind dialed, and the wind would drop off. And then they'd have to make a change mid-run. For almost all of these stages where I could dial, I would dial my elevation for shooting the targets out, but I would keep my wind zeroed out, and I would just hold for wind. And quite a few of the targets, I would get a good wind call. I'd nail a target center mass. I'd go to the next one. I'd use about that same wind call, and I would sling it off the opposite side. So the wind was changing up that quickly. And again, this was all shot from prone, so this was a good time for you to see what the wind was doing, because you could see the mirage, you could see the boils coming off the targets or coming off the ground. You could see the impacts when you hit the targets, and quite a few of these you could see your splash when you missed the target. The ROs were really only calling hits, but very often you would have one of the other guys on your squad on a scope behind you, and they would be watching, and they would call where they saw your trace go to. So it was really nice. Again, you had a lot of teamwork going on. I didn't hear anybody refuse to call for someone else. If somebody said, "Hey, would you get on glass for me?" they jump up there and try to spot trace for that shooter. So again, a great time.
This, and just kind of reiterate what John had said, again, I love prone, whether it's shooting or sleeping. It's my favorite position to be in. Okay, so the first target was 317. I held right edge and dinged it. And then by the time I missed every other shot except my last shot, which was at 632, where I held 2 mils off the left edge. So the wind was so just up and down and bipolar and gusty that it truly did. You had to think on the fly. Thankfully, those people spotting behind you were telling you, hey, you need to adjust big time. Sometimes it didn't even matter because it had already changed by the time you re-engaged and changed your hold. I hate dialing, loathe it, hate it. I had to dial on this, and I all but one stage we had to dial. So that was good in my aspect, and the fact I got 2 hits and I was able to correct and dial, I was proud of that.
And for this match, I was shooting the Accuracy International AE Mark II in 243. Sarah was shooting a 20-inch barreled 308 in an APO chassis. So when you talk about a handicap with the wind, she was definitely shooting a rig that was at the mercy of the wind. So we'll be looking at upgrading her a little bit later on, and we'll talk about that in a bit. That was the 4x4 stage, which again was fairly simple. And then from there, we went over to the
barrel.
Yeah, the next.
The barrel, stage 9.
Okay.
So he's reading. So the barrel stage was made up by Dale Campo, and so it was a 55-gallon blue plastic drum bucket that was suspended on a rope. In sort of this frame. So there's 5 positions. You got down on the frame for the first 2. got up on the barrel for the next two that you could not touch it. The only thing that could touch it was your rifle and your support arm. Your body could not support it. Back down on the frame for 3, up on a post for the 4th position, and then in a triangle for the 5th. 2 shots each, 90-second time limit, and the range was 410 yards.
And on this one, I got 4 hits. When we were looking at it, because you only had the 90-second time limit and that barrel really was not stable. And the rules were you couldn't use your body to stabilize the barrel. If they had allowed it, I would have gone up there and put my whole chest, all my weight into that barrel and pushed it against the rope as hard as I could to stabilize it. But they didn't allow you to do that. Your body could not touch the barrel. Obviously, your arms could touch the barrel because you need to stabilize your rifle, but you couldn't get in there and load the barrel with your body weight. And because of the way it was hung, they could definitely tell if you were loading the barrel with your body weight. The shooting off of the first position down on the frame is just a standard barricade position, but when you came up, I had bipod spikes on my Atlas bipod, and my intent was to dig the spikes into the barrel because it was just a plastic barrel, get them in there, and then load the rifle as much as I could load it because it was off-center. The rope was going through the top of the barrel, so it wouldn't roll like you would typically think. So if I could get a good grip on it, I could load the top of the barrel. Well, that really turned around and bit me in the rear because as I came up, I got my 2 shots on the first position, came up, raised the rifle up, and whacked it down into the barrel. And the bipod spikes stuck, but as they did so, I started this bounce. And as I got on the rifle and tried to stabilize it, it was bouncing way too much. And I went ahead and just ripped off my 2 shots from there because I knew it was not going to stabilize in the allotted time. Came off of that, went on to get a couple more hits from other positions. And I came off of the barrel with 4 hits total. Now, the interesting thing is, and we'll talk a little bit more about the second day in a minute, but when we shot the second day, we came back and shot these same stages again.
With
you
some
didn't
twists.
get to shoot,
Yeah,
there were some twists, but you didn't get to shoot all the stages again. But I managed to have to shoot the barrel stage again. And this time I just went at it with a 4-end bag and gingerly set the rifle on the 4-end and got 1 hit off of it on the second day and just barely missed the second one. So the barrel was totally shootable. You just had to address it in a very finessed fashion. You couldn't go up there ham-fisted and slam the rifle into it. So lesson learned on that kind of setup. And the cool thing about these things, these kind of barricades, these kind of shooting problems is it makes you into a more well-rounded shooter because now I saw how that worked on that. I file that away in my memory banks, and the next time I go to a competition that has something similar to it, maybe it's not a barrel, maybe next time it's a wooden plank or a tube or something like that, but suspended in that same manner, I can think, okay, here's how I need to do this. I need to go up there, I need to be gentle with it, and I'll be able to get more stable.
And I pretty much took the same, I knew there was a snowball's chance in Alabama I was going to be able to hit something off that barrel. So I took my 2 shots and I just threw them. And where they went, and then I focused on the other positions. Believe it or not, that top of the post was one of my favorite positions because it was shoulder height for me. It was more stable than you thought it was going to be. It was wide enough and chunky enough. And I was glad that I did that.
Yeah, the post really, when I got on the top of the post, because I didn't have a 4-end bag on the rifle, I just rode it up until the post was against the magazine on the AE, and that got me fairly stable there. I believe I actually got 1 hit at least on top of the post. So once we finished that, we went over to the roof line, and I'm not going to spend a whole ton of time on the roof line stage because it was a standard rooftop. There were targets at 436, 366, 430, 488, 527, and 561 yards. And the only catch on this one was you the way the targets were set up out there, you couldn't see your misses. You got no splash on your misses at all. So again, with the wind doing funky things, if you went up there with the wind call, it may have taken a couple of targets before you got an idea of what was actually going on. So the wind was the name of the game on this. But it was a standard rooftop with 2 boards nailed onto it, and you just got up there, got in position, and then you were good to go.
This was actually my best stage. I had never shot a rooftop before in my life, so they were kind enough to actually let me, walk up it and see how I needed to position myself. And the bad thing is what worked for the guys was not going to work for me. I couldn't load a hip, and that's just because that's not where my body strength is. So I kind of did a modified prone, and God bless yoga because that helped. And they kept calling hit, and I'm like, wait, I'm on a rooftop. I've never been on a rooftop, and I'm dialing, and I'm hitting these things. Are you kidding me? So I kind of felt 10 feet tall and bulletproof at that point. So I think I got 3. They said I got 5. So who kn- yeah.
So yeah, it was actually a stage that she beat me on. So
Woo!
so yeah, she did a great job on that one. And there, from that point, we moved over to the 1,000-yard deck there at Frontline, and they did this a little bit out of order because the stumps were in front of the deck, and stumps were stage 11, and the deck was stage 12. So we shot stage 12 first before going to stage 11. And this one was very straightforward. It was 700-yard, 900-yard, 1,000-yard, 800-yard, and 600-yard targets. All shot from prone on a covered deck. The only catch with the deck is your squad mates could really screw you if they weren't careful. They were really controlled on how everything ran on the deck, because they got the whole squad up there. Everybody set their rifles down on line, and then regardless of what your shooting order had been to that point, they just went down the line on where you set your rifle. You got prep time to get down behind your rifle, the whole squad as a whole, get on target, identify the targets. You were able to close your bolt, put your weapon on safe, insert your magazine, and then they had everyone stand up and come off the rifles. At that point, most of us took advantage of the large benches behind the firing line
In
and
the
had a seat.
shade. Yes.
And then they called next shooter on down the line. You'd stand up, you'd say your name. They would start the clock. You drop down behind your rifle, and you would engage targets left to right. And these are their standard target berm emplacements for the 1,000-yard line. But the reason the yardages are strange is because you started on the 700-yard target on the left-hand side. Then you went to the 900-yard target on the left-hand side. You shot the 1,000-yard target in the middle. Then you came back to the 800-yard target on the right-hand side, and then back to the 600-yard target on the right-hand side. So you kind of shot a horseshoe with them. That was nice because instead of crisscrossing, you just had to start on one side and you had to easily swing back to the other side. The disadvantage there is that you were dialing up and dialing down. So you had to keep that in mind. You weren't always dialing in one position. You would skip past and have to come back. Really not that big of a deal. I don't know what the issue was that I had on this stage. This should have been a really simple, really easy stage for me. But for some reason, I was launching shots 3/4 mil high. I was sending them right over the top of the targets. I backed off, and once the stage was done, I double-checked my data. My data seemed correct. I shouldn't have had any problems. I've shot this gun further than 1,000 yards not too long ago. Same data, same load, everything. So I had no idea why I was missing over the top of the targets. I've got some homework now that we're back to figure out if this barrel's sped up or what. It's 243 and it crossed 1,000 rounds at this match. So I'll have to see what's going on. The barrel may be starting to give up on me, but I don't know. So we'll have to chronograph it and see if it sped up while it was at the match, and that would be a really good indicator that I was launching stuff high, that the barrel has started to speed up. And also I noticed as the day went on, and even on the second day, I was starting to have to hold low on targets to make sure I got my hits with the same data I was using. So next week we definitely have a range trip, and I'll take the rest of the ammo that I was shooting at the Guardian and take it out and chronograph it and see if I had a speed jump between the two. And it wasn't a huge difference, but it was enough that I was missing these targets at longer ranges.
I was at a disadvantage. I had the 20-inch barrel, my 308, my slow pig, and I didn't hit nothing. I don't remember why. I was just off, and honest to goodness, that's me. I can probably tell you that.
Well, and then we once we got done doing that, we went to the stumps, which were exactly what it says. They were large tree stumps. Actually, it was 4 large tree stumps, 2 on one side, 2 on the other, and then there was a small tree stump in the middle. And you had a target at 437 yards, and on the start signal, you just had to go use the stumps as barricades and get your hits on the target. Again, 2 shots from each position. This was straightforward.
Yeah.
There was nothing strange to it. Some guys tried to go with their bipods, and because the surface is so uneven, even if you planned, I'm going to go to this exact spot on here, and you get up there, your bipod may have broke through a section of the stump, or something may have sunk in there. You realize that it was spongy wood. It wasn't a nice hard barricade. So I decided to go front bag on this one. And the front bag worked much better on those really strange surfaces. Some guys made the bipod work. For me, I felt the front bag was a little bit more stable.
I did the same thing, front bag. There's nothing better than sitting in between 2 large tree stumps on the tree stump shooting, and when you shoot, you just go poof, and you're covered in sawdust and dirt, and it's true shooting there. But I mean, very straightforward. It was a nice way to end the day.
And that was the last stage for day 1. And I'll tell you, this match has now required me to go out and buy more gear because what we figured out is the way our shooting order. Sarah was almost always shooting right before me. So I had to scramble if I wanted to get pictures or video of her shooting, but I had to scramble even quicker because I had to be in the ready box, ready to go when she comes off the line, and then we had to take whatever bag she was using, whatever she had set up on her gun, and transfer it over because it was usually the exact same gear that I was going to use on my gun to shoot the stage. So now we're definitely going to have to jump on the internet and break out the credit card and grab her own shooting bags. That way we don't run into that situation. It's nice not to have to carry twice the amount of gear, but when instead of sitting here and running the stage through your head over and over again, you have to worry about getting your gun set up really quickly, it can put a little bit of extra stress on you. And the one thing that I absolutely hate is I hate making other shooters wait for me. When we're shooting a match, I want to flow through quickly because I know the quicker that you can get up on the line and be ready to shoot your stage, the quicker the whole day will go. Even if it only takes you 2 minutes on each stage to set your gun up and go. Now you take that 2 minutes and you spread it out over 92 shooters over 12 different stages, and that adds a lot of time to a day. So it's really important to know that you're up next, be ready to go, and as soon as it's time to go, do your thing. Not goof around, talk, forget where you're at. There's plenty of time after you shoot your stage, or if you're 3 deep, then go ahead, have a conversation whatsoever. When we would roll into these stages after we get the stage brief, I would get the gun set up, I would have an idea of what was going on, and I would make sure the only thing I needed to do was get the bags on the gun and go. And then that gave me plenty of time to shoot some pictures and video and stuff and goof around. One thing that I will definitely give Gary and Paul Smith and everybody there at this match props for is this great shooter's packet that they handed out on day one. Actually, prior to arriving, they sent out emails with ranges to targets and some stage descriptions and stuff like that. But when you arrived, these were ready for you at check-in. And on the back, they had ranges to all the targets. They had the different stages, the names in that. Inside the packet, there were stage descriptions, very limited stage descriptions, but still enough to give you an idea of what you were going to address. So I had almost all of my dope written out the morning of the first day, and then I would just double check it as conditions felt like they changed a little bit. So that's really nice because you can be ready to go. It was easy for me to transfer the stuff to a card when I needed to run multiple targets, or to just dial it on before I went up there to the stage if it was only a single target that we were engaging from multiple points. So these kind of things, I know sometimes they're a pain in the butt for match directors to put together, but they really, really help shooters to be able to go into it. And I use it, obviously, it looks pretty ugly now, but I use it to take notes about my performance, about how many hits I got, about things that I screwed up. And it helps me, obviously, when I come back here to tell you guys about it, but it also really helps me when I come back and I have to diagnose an issue that I had, or I need to set up a training scenario so that I can try to improve on a stage that I did really poorly on. So that was day one. They did the raffle for the prize table on day one. And in Guardian matches, you've heard me talk about this in the past, you don't get prizes based upon where you finished. The first place shooter has a set prize. They have trophies for first through third place shooter, for high military or LE shooter, high female shooter. But that's pretty much it for the prizes for where you place.
And 308.
Oh, and high 308 shooter. Yep. So that's pretty much it for prizes for where you placed. And only the first place out of those actually gets a set prize. For the rest of the shooters, you get tickets with your entry fee to go into the raffle, and then you can purchase extra tickets. And all the money from the raffle, the match, everything goes to support Bethany Christian Services, which is a family support organization and adoption agency that helps children find their forever homes. So it's a very, very good cause. And we'll definitely leave a link to Bethany down below so you can see what they're all about. But that is the whole thing with this match, is it's really designed as a fundraiser for Bethany. So going into it, you're going into it with that giving attitude, and I think that kind of spreads over to the whole attitude of the match. You really don't see a lot of the shenanigans that you see at some of the matches where there's a lot of money or a lot of high dollar prizes on the line for where you finish. So you purchase these raffle tickets, and that money goes to help support Bethany. And then your tickets go in a hat, and they just draw them out, and you get to go up to the prize table as your ticket is drawn. And every time we've gone, we've put some money into the hat, and we've ended up at least coming away with the money that we spent on the tickets. Now, I know that's not always the case, because we have some very generous souls out there that were holding ribbons and ribbons worth of tickets, because some of the prizes are very high-end prizes. Masterpiece Arms donated a couple of chassis. APO, Ashbury Precision Ordnance, donated a couple of chassis. There were Night Force scopes, Vortex scopes, various different stuff from
barrels or hog hunts. I mean, there were all kinds of stuff.
So there were really a ton of high dollar prizes on the table. One younger shooter actually managed to walk away with almost all of the components he needed to build a brand new open class rifle. He won a Masterpiece Arms chassis, won a barrel,
a Vortex
scope. So he had, all he needs to do is grab a Remington Action, and he'll have pretty much everything to put together an open class gun. And he was just absolutely beaming when he realized the stuff that he was pulling off that table. So it's those kind of things that make this match a little bit different. from the average match that you'll run into.
And at the end, when they're, eventually you guys get down to the hats and stickers and stuff, the little things that are kind of left over in the price table. And they make a point to say, any new shooters, if you haven't gotten anything, come up and get yourself something, because, it's your first match. It's a big deal. And it's always nice to have that certain hat or certain t-shirt or something that says, this was my first match and this is what I got and this is my memory.
And the really nice thing about the raffle system too is that it's not just shooters that it's open to. It's a fair way that you can get the ROs involved, you can get the range personnel involved, you can get spectators involved. So there's always that concern at a standard match when you allow ROs to shoot and you lump their scores in with everyone else, that what's going on behind the scenes. Not saying that there ever is anything. I'm just saying that I've heard those gripes before. But when you do it this way with a raffle, then it's pretty much everyone can get in. Everyone has a fair chance. So it's really nice. They raised a good deal of money at this one, I believe. They said they ran through quite a few rolls of tickets selling them. So absolutely love hearing that. I can't wait. At this point when we are filming this is Tuesday. We still haven't got the email to find out what the final tabulation on how much the match made for Bethany, but I'm sure it's a considerable amount. And we absolutely love being part of this because we know that the funds are going for a great organization. So the only disadvantage of the raffle is it takes a while to go through all these tickets. And so we were there pretty late. What time did we leave?
It was dark. I know probably close to 8. It was late because I joked that most of the places were already shut down at 8:30 on a Saturday night by the time we got back to town. So dinner options were very limited.
We were all going to try to hit a steakhouse for dinner on Saturday, but when it came right down to it, knowing that we had to be back bright and early the next morning for day 2, we just hit Bojangles and grabbed some chicken and went back to the hotel room.
And we sat on the floor because we were filthy. It was straight up a carpet picnic.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly. So got all that done. We were originally supposed to be back at 7:30 on day 2, but Paul from Frontline pushed it back a little bit. So we had to be there at 8, ready to shoot the cold bore shot on the second day. And the cold bore shot was that was the only individual effort on day 2. But even that had implications for your shooting team. We back up to on one of the reasons that day 1 ran a little bit long is because they had to tabulate the scores quickly and they had to set up the teams before we left on day 1. So before we rolled out of the parking lot, they had the whiteboards up and they had our team breakdown. And specifically, the way they did the team breakdown is once they had all the shooters tabulated and they had all the names plugged in that were not going to shoot on day 2, they took the upper half of the field and the lower half of the field, and they took shooter number 1 and teamed shooter number 1 up with the last shooter, the lowest ranking shooter from the first day, and shooter number 2 with the next lowest, and so on and so forth, which is kind of interesting because what it ended up being is the first team would have the largest division between highest experience and lowest experience, and then the middle teams were pretty close. I finished at the bottom of the top half on the first day. So me and my partner were really only spaced apart by a couple of finishing places. So we were pretty even on our performance on the first day, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Very often the intermediate teams are the ones that accrue the most points on a team event like this. But they got everybody set up. You tried to at least get some FaceTime with your partner to see who you were supposed to team up with the next day, and then you split out. So we came back the next day and we had the cold bore shot for the first thing, and I actually like the way that they set this up because they told you ahead of time before you rolled out if there was a problem with your gun, if something broke on day 1, if you needed to re-zero, etc. You had to shoot the cold bore first and then you could re-zero. Very often when you have a one-day match and you have a cold bore in there, It's not necessarily a cold bore because a lot of guys show up early for registration so they can register and they can check the 0 on their rifle. Where obviously if you check the 0 on your rifle, you fired foulers for that day. It's no longer strictly a cold bore anymore. You've warmed up, the rifle's warmed up, it's ready to go. So I like the fact that on the second day you rolled in and the first thing you did after you pulled your gun out was stage on the line and go shoot the cold bore. And cold bore was sponsored by B&T Industries, the maker of the awesome Atlas bipod, which is what I was actually using for this match. And for the cold bore shot, you have an ace of spades that B&T supplies for these that has a little white reticle in the middle of it. And whoever gets the closest to the center of the crosshairs wins the cold bore stage and wins a gift certificate from B&T Industries. Now, something really hilarious about these cold bore shots that I've heard from Casey at B&T, Gary reiterated it during the awards at Guardian. Very often, no one recoups the gift certificate because in order to use the gift certificate, you have to send your card in. Now, B&T will send your card back, but very often guys want to hang on to that card and they don't want to let it out of their control because they've got such a perfect center shot on this thing that they don't redeem the gift certificates. I assure you guys, if you win a B&T Cold Bore Challenge, send the card in with your gift certificate. They will send the card back to you. You don't want to lose out on that gift certificate just because you want to keep that playing card with your perfect cold bore shot. And very often it has to be a perfect cold bore shot to win the challenge. We see these challenges come down to breaking out calipers and trying to measure the offset between two different cards. So we had the cold bore challenge, and as far as the team implications on the cold bore challenge, if there were any tiebreakers that needed to be done, then it would be based on the lower of the team members' cold bore shot. And it actually did come down to that in the end. There was a three-way tie for third place, and it came down to that cold bore shot to spread them out and decide who had won it.
And if I remember correctly, the gentleman whose cold bore shot determined the tiebreaker. This was his first match, so he had the biggest grin on his face. So it was a neat moment.
Now the cold bore was interesting for me because when I came off of the deck stage with that offset that I was having, shooting over top the targets, I was wondering if something had shifted on the gun, and so I got down and I fired my cold bore, and my elevation was absolutely perfect, and that really put another question mark in my head, but then it also allowed me to roll into day two knowing that I didn't need to mess with anything on my gun, that my 0 was still on. So that was good to go. The first stage that we went to from the for day two was, well, let me go back to how they broke us up.
Right.
You weren't in the same squads that you were on day one, obviously, because you're shooting with a team now, and your teammate may be in a different squad. So everyone got re-squadded. Sarah, you were in
I was in squad one. We called ourselves the Rags to Riches, or the winners and losers, you name it. I was at the bottom of the pack, which we all knew would happen. And I was about to knock something over there. Sorry. I know, he told me not to do it too. Anyway, I was at the bottom of the pack. We knew that was going to happen. I was with a gentleman named Juan. I can't pronounce your last name. Sorry, Juan. And he was sixth, placed sixth overall. And I didn't. Let's put it that way. So I was in squad one. I believe you were in squad 6, which was the last squad,
yep,
which was the middle of the pack people.
Yep. So we were spread out and we were placed at different firing points based on our squad, just like day 1 through 6. So I think you started the unknown distance.
I did. I started just like I did the day before, started with stage 1 and worked my way through. So yeah, the unknown distance was the first one. They kind of stopped us and didn't let us go down there. They moved targets. You had a minute. So there were 12 people, 6 teams. The first 3 teams got a minute to look and measure and then decide what the distance of the target was. And the next 6 people got a minute to do the same thing. You went back, you talked with your teammate, and then you both agreed upon what distance it was going to be. I believe we said it was 5. Gary posted something. What was it? 5.
No, it was 4, like 457 or something.
458, somewhere in there. And I think maybe we came up with 417, which was like the standard that I think most people came up with. So
for the target was a 12-inch by 12-inch square, and you were able to drop down prone and mill the thing. So I went ahead and went prone, milled it, and on the Vortex reticle that I was using, the extreme sides of the mill scale on the reticle is broken down into 2/10 segments, so it was really easy to drop that over the plate. Maybe not as fine as I would have liked. If I had to do it again, I would go back and I would use the wind hole dots because they're a little bit finer, so you can find that edge. It doesn't hide behind a hash mark. But my down and dirty quick estimation was that the target was about 0.8 wide. Well, you take a 12-inch target, 0.8 mils, and it came out to about 417 when I plugged it into the Kestrel calculator. And for those of you that want a really quick down and dirty lesson, you take the height of the target or the width of the target in inches, multiply it by 27.77 and divide it by the mils. And that will give you your range in yards to the target. And so most people are using a variation of that formula. There were no laser rangefinders allowed, no optical range finding means other than your rifle scope. I was shooting the 243, and it's approximately a 3 MOA target. It's a pretty big meaty target, so I was not incredibly concerned with getting it down to the nth degree. So 417 is what me and my partner came up with. Most of the people on our squad came up with 417. Having it just a little bit further out was really not that big of a deal, especially since I knew my gun was running a little bit high on the previous day. So shot on that one, it was good enough for 3 hits, and I don't have how my team did on here, but that was good enough for 3 out of 4 shots on it. And on the team challenge, the way they broke it up is first shooter would fire 4 shots, second shooter would fire 4 shots. And you had 85 seconds to get all 4 of your shots, for both shooters to shoot. So 85 seconds to go through everything. And that one, the unknown distance, I think, was the only one that both shooters shot on the same target.
Yes.
From the same position.
Yes.
So that was the only thing there. After the unknown distance, I think then we went to barricade and tires.
That was the barricade and tires.
Okay.
So yes, that was, and after your first shooter shot 4, you could not go until that first shooter said go. Even if you saw he'd fired, his gun's unsafe, if he didn't say go, you had to wait. You were standing at the cone waiting to get in position. After that, it was the dodge and the concrete. So back to the truck and the concrete culverts. And that was 463 yards, and it was the same thing. The 4 positions on the truck, we took out the prone. 4 positions on the tubes, took out the prone. We had issues on this one. My partner had a bad primer. He thought he popped a firing pin, so I didn't even get to shoot on that second team's. Like, I got down and got into the tube and racked my bolt, and the time ran out. And stuff like that happens. It just does.
So I don't think we're going to go through each and every stage on this just for the sake of time, because basically the way it worked, for instance, on day 1, the first firing point had barricade on one side and tires on the other. So everybody would shoot the barricade, and then everyone would switch over and shoot the tires. For the team side of things, the way it worked is you would roll into one of those firing points, for instance, the dodge and the concrete, and one shooter would shoot the dodge, the other shooter would shoot from the concrete. And so you would get behind your firing points, you would get ready to go, and as soon as the time started, the first shooter would always shoot the first obstacle. You didn't get to choose, you didn't get to decide which one was which. They already had that set up. So for lack of a better term, the stronger shooter would shoot the first obstacle, and he would always shoot first, and the weaker shooter would shoot second. So, and again, that's why I'm air quoting, because it's just how you finished on the first day.
Right.
It's not necessarily who's stronger and who's weaker.
Right.
So you didn't get to choose, and they tried to set it up so the more difficult problem was the first shooter. So you would go up there, you'd fire your 4 shots, and as soon as you were done with your 4 shots, you yelled go, and then your partner would go up and engage his shooting problem.
Or her shooting problem.
Or her. This has pros and cons to it, and you can never do any or set up any rules or set up any stage that will satisfy everybody. But one of the biggest cons that I saw with this format is that you really had to balance how long you took to get your hits to still give your partner some time to get up there and shoot. And it really depended on what your goal was, because the team challenge had its own prize. For the top winning team, both team members got a certificate for 2 people to go to an all-expense paid, all-inclusive hog hunt at Drop Tine Ranch. So it was a pretty high-end prize, and I'm sure there were a lot of guys that really, really wanted to win that prize.
There was also, I don't mean to interrupt, but there was also 2 lifetime membership to each of the members to Frontline Defense.
So really, really nice top-end prizes. So if you really, really wanted to win the prize, and that was your goal, is to get the most shots, well, then you would let the first shooter have the most time necessary to get solid hits on everything. But if your goal was to get that second shooter to improve and give him the most opportunity to do the best, then the first shooter is going to rush really quickly to try to get that second shooter the most time he can get to engage those targets from his shooting problem. And there was really no indicator, because I can't shoot and look at my stopwatch at the same time. I try to communicate to my partner that if I'm taking too long, yell at me and we can switch over. So you have to balance that. It's something you have to come up with your teammate and decide, what's our goal here? Is our goal to have fun and make sure you get your shots? Because there were a lot of stages I came off of that I was genuinely trying to make sure that my partner got plenty of time to shoot. And I think I cheated John out of quite a few shots, because I would get in and I would take the extra time I needed to get stable and get those shots off. And he would only get a couple of shots on that stage before he timed out. And it really, I kind of felt bad about it. He didn't seem to be greatly bothered by it, but it started to really bug me, because my way, when I address a stage, I would rather get slow hits than fast misses. So like on day 1, there were quite a few stages where I timed out because I got up there and I knew I could take an extra second or 2 to settle down and get a hit. Then I could just cracking off shots to get to the next firing position. And that's generally my strategy anytime I shoot a PRS type stage. And so that strategy turns around and it starts to cheat my partner when we're running on the same time limit. And it would have kind of solved itself if they switched it up to where one stage the primary shooter shot first, and then the next stage the secondary shooter shot first. I think it would have kind of equally distributed that a little bit more. And really, if you still wanted a game, whoever got or whoever was the strongest shooter getting the most advantage, you could still gain that if you wanted to, but it would prevent you from unconsciously cheating the second shooter out of shots. What do you think?
We really didn't have that problem. Like I said, the only time that we ran out of time was when there was the mishap. And what that did was create some communication between us about what our game plan was. Is he went back and went to the 100-yard range and made sure it wasn't a firing pin. It was just a bad primer. So, but we were like, all right, I have enough ammo. You shoot the rifle, hand it to me, and I'll shoot the rifle. I mean, that's kind of how we were going to do it. And then, even some guys were like, well, I have another rifle in my truck. So it was just, it truly was a fun time for us. It worked on different aspects. There were a couple stages where your partner had to dial your scope for you, and you weren't allowed to touch your scope. And so it worked on that communication of, this is my dope, go. And I think I enjoyed it. I felt like it was a success because you did communicate well. The last stage for me, which was the last stage of technically the last stage of the second day, was where you set your rifle up and then you switched rifles. And so I felt like I was at an advantage here because I am used to shooting a rifle that's not set up for me until my husband set one up for me, of course. But I know how to get on a gun and find my glass by adjusting my face. So taking Juan's rifle was fine, and it was a hold stage, which I love. I love to hold, and I cleaned it. I cleaned the stage, and I was so excited because here was the problem, here's how we communicate, and they had to read the hold to you. So your partner read the dope for their gun that you were shooting. So I liked the different aspects of it. It wasn't about hitting the most targets. It was about how are you going to work well as a team. And to me, that almost seemed like a better outcome than, winning a lifetime membership in a state that we don't live in. So it was different for me, but I enjoyed the second day a whole lot more.
So the one really cool thing about the team stage, like Sarah mentioned, is they did throw a couple of wrenches at you. They did kind of mess with the works a little bit. And for me, I was squad number 6, so we shut the deck first. And as we rolled into the deck, we figured out where me and my partner were going to set up. We dropped our gear, we got our rifles set down, and then they told you to go ahead and get on your gun and get everything set up. I had one of my Sidewinder dope card holders stuck on the side of the rifle, and I had the target dopes already set up on it, which was 500, 700, 800, and 600, and had everything written out, had everything ready to go on it. And then they told us, hey, go ahead and stand up behind your rifles. That second shooter, step back. First shooter, step behind the second shooter's gun. And then they switched us around. And we were initially just going to swap things over and swap dope over to each other, but I think that one was one where you had to call dope for your partner.
Yes, your partner had to call dope.
So the way my gun was set up, he really could have just looked at the dope card holder and run my gun just like he would his, and he had his dope written down on a piece of masking tape, slapped on his sleeve, and I was just going to stick that on mine. And I'm kind of used to shooting students' guns when I go out to the range if we have to figure out a problem or something, so I can get on a gun and make it work for me. But that was really interesting that they threw that in there. And one of the really cool things about it is that for guys that were on the extreme ends of the spectrum, they may have shown up with something that was production class gun or an off-the-shelf gun or something that was just something to get their feet wet to see if they like this kind of shooting. And now all of a sudden they're dropped behind an open class rifle that may cost several $1,000s to get set up. So it's really neat to see that and allow them to get behind that kind of gun and see, well, if I actually had this level of gun, would it increase my performance? Now, don't get me wrong here. It's not just the equipment. It's not just breaking out the credit card and sliding it through there. There's still all that homework that has to be done, getting the load worked up, getting the dope lined out, all that goes into making sure that gun is finally tuned and ready to run. But it was nice to put a new shooter on that level of equipment, or a new competitor on that level of equipment, and say, here you go, this is the kind of deal you could be running. So just to kind of give them a deeper look into the sport. So that was really cool. And most of us, especially in this type of competition, I love to let other people shoot my gun. I'm not selfish that way. You can get on it, do whatever you need to do it, as long as we know where the turrets go back to zero when we're done, then we're good to go. Now, the next stage that Sarah mentioned that kind of changed things up a little bit was your partner had to dial on your rifle. So you would shoot your own rifle, and the targets were 4 targets out there from 317 yards to the farthest was at 632 yards. And you had to actually dial your dope for each stage. Your rifle had to start on 0, and once you started the stage, you couldn't touch your scope. So your partner would have to actually dial for each stage. A lot of guys would just hand their partner their dope card, and once they engaged the target, they'd run the bolt. Their partner would dial the scope to the next yard line, and they would repeat the process. And it was fairly simple. For me, I don't do a lot of adjustment. I don't dial wind. I don't mess with my parallax once the stage starts. I'll set the parallax where I need to go before I start. So all my partner had to do was reach over, grab the turret, and dial it. It was interesting because you don't think about things until you're in that situation, but I had to end up, because the scope he was shooting a Razor Gen 2, which has really fine tick marks behind it. To accurately see where I dialed the scope, I actually had to hover right above his head, right in line with the scope to get it dialed in. I was running an old Razor Gen 1, one of the first generations with the 5 mil per rev turret, so I've got really wide clicks between each one, so I think that made it a little bit easier for him to get my dope dialed on. But it was a really fun stage to where, again, it required some teamwork to get that going. Plus, you had to go from hunched over your partner's rifle, dialing in, to dropping into your shooting position and your partner jumping up and getting on there. The disadvantage is, because of the way that format was set up, it was almost impossible to spot for your partner.
Right.
So there was no way you could call win for him or call his misses. But it was pretty fun.
I think that was a good stage, because even your very brand new shooter who this was their first match still knows how to dial a scope. So I think that it was another element of being able to still be successful at something. Even if the targets weren't hit, you were still part of something that could have been successful.
So once we were done with all the stages, and again, I'm not going through each and every stage we did in the team match because they were the exact same stages we shot on day one, with just slight tweaks to removing a position or removing a target and then splitting us up. So once we got done with that, we came back and assembled back under the tent, and they announced the winners and awarded the prizes for the winners of the team match, and that was pretty much it. As far as the administrative side of things, we did get some nice barbecue lunch on day one, and the lunch rotation was handled very smoothly. As soon as lunch was set up and was ready, shooters got done at one firing point. They moved their gear to the next firing point, staged, and then went up to the tent and ate lunch. It was pretty quick. As soon as everybody was done with lunch, they cut back and shooting commenced, and it was really quick and smooth. Sometimes a meal can really throw a wrench in things and cause things to kind of go sideways, but this time it didn't. And that's kind of another thing I want to point out about the shooting community. At least twice in this, shooters, when you're around other long-range shooters, we're generally a trustworthy bunch. I mean, at this, we're breaking for lunch and we're going up to the tent out of sight of your gear, your equipment, everything, and we've got thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment just sitting on the line. Now, I believe there were probably ROs still at the stages and that, but you know, ROs don't know whose equipment belongs to who, and there are rarely ever any shenanigans that you have to worry about. And of course, there was my wife.
You guys, it's hard being a girl. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. And Missy Gilliland can back me up, because she was attacked by these animals as well. So a bee got stuck in my bra, and it was one of those little sweat bees that just, you know, annoy you and hurt. And I tell you what, y'all showed some great restraint, because my husband was the only one who tried to help me. Now, mind you, y'all watched, which was fine, because I said, oh my God, there's a bee in my bra. And he was the only one. I'm sorry, Travis, that you missed all of that spectacle. You should pay attention a little more often. But yeah, it happens. I kind of giggled at shenanigans, because I'm notoriously known for shenanigans. And so there were shenanigans, just not the kind that were messing with your gear.
And see, here's the funny part. I wasn't even going to bring that up. I was specifically talking about her leaving her Kestrel at a firing point and walking away.
So I did that too. And he was the squad kind of following me, because I was first and he was last. And Ironically, my partner also left his cell phone at that same spot, but nobody picked up his cell phone. But somebody did pick up my Kestrel, and I was able to use it for the last stage, which was the switching gun stage.
So really,
my bad.
really nice to see, though. Just shows you the kind of people that we have in this sport, and it's really gratifying to see. So overall, that was the Guardian Long Range competition at Frontline Defense. And I want to tell you, if you guys are anywhere near Warrenton, North Carolina, Frontline Defense is an absolute top-notch place to shoot. Paul puts so much blood, sweat, and tears into that facility and making it as great as it can possibly be. He's constantly improving on it. I'm really sad that it's more than 11 hours away for us. Otherwise, I would be a lifetime member there at Frontline Defense. It's a really nice facility. He really has the best in mind for all shooters. So if you guys get a chance to go down there and check it out, we'll leave the website down in the comments below. The Guardian Long Range competitions, we have shot several Guardian matches now. Can't wait to shoot the next one. Not the next one coming up, because we will actually, I don't think we'll be in the country for the next one.
We'll be out of the country for that one.
But I can't wait to the next Guardian match that we get to shoot. They are just an incredibly fun match. And as I mentioned going through this, the type of attitudes you see, the just vibe of the whole match is really great. This is the first team match. I'll be looking forward to shooting another one again in the future. I think it's cool to kind of throw that pro-am type setup into the second day. Obviously, it does make it for a little bit longer. I've got to plan for an extra vacation day and that to go shoot these. But it was really cool. So, Gary, thank you very much for putting on an awesome match. And I really want to thank all the ROs that were out there that are dedicating their time to help this out. If you were out there ROing for the match, thank you very much. You made things go pretty smoothly. I always try to thank ROs, but sometimes I get caught up into things and I don't get to personally stop and shake your hand and thank you for your work. So if I didn't, I'm sorry, but thank you very much for spending your time out there baking in the sun and making everything work. So that's it. This ran a little bit long, but wanted to make sure that you guys got as much detail as possible. And of course, anytime you get both of us on camera, then for some reason things run long. But,
really? Okay.
But that's all. If you guys have any questions on the Guardian Long Range competition, please leave your comments down in the comments section below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you like this video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, get out and shoot.